It wasn't the bark that caught Logan's attention. It was the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty but loaded, thick like humidity before a thunderstorm. A silence that carries weight, warning presence. Logan Reed, a single father navigating the morning chaos of cereal spills, toddler tantrums and his own exhaustion, was halfway through rinsing a bottle when he felt it. That silence settled in the kitchen like a shadow. He turned. Ranger, his retired canine partner, stood still in the doorway. 92 pounds of disciplined muscle, his fur brushed with age, muzzle scarred from battles long past, eyes sharp and knowing. No tail wag, no curious head tilt, no movement at all. Just ears pricked, body locked, breath held. He looked like a statue carved from loyalty and instinct. Logan's stomach clenched. He'd seen Ranger like this once before, in Mosul, seconds before a sniper's shot, and Ranger had been right. Ranger? Logan said softly, drying his hands. No response. Logan's gaze shifted past him to the kitchen table. Ellie was giggling, spoon in hand, tapping it against her bowl like a tiny drum. Her blonde curls bounced with every laugh, sunlight catching on their golden strands. She sat in her booster seat, her legs kicking against the chair, halfway through a bowl of oatmeal, banana and cinnamon, her favourite. Across from her, Dana stood with a gentle smile, her back to Ranger. The nanny they'd had for 6 months now, sweet, soft-spoken, always punctual, pale pink hoodie, blue jeans. She leaned forward, coaxing Ellie with a playful voice. Just one more bite for the princess. That's when Ranger exploded. There was no growl, no warning bark, just motion. A flash of tan and black, the scrabble of nails on tile, and the sound of teeth meeting flesh. Dana screamed. The spoon clattered against the counter. Ellie wailed. Logan reacted on instinct, adrenaline overriding confusion. "Ranger, out!" His voice cracked with the authority of command, military, practiced, powerful. Ranger froze. Still locked on Dana's forearm, but unmoving, not shaking, not ripping, just holding, controlled. Then at the word he let go. Dana collapsed to the floor, cradling her arm, blood darkening her sleeve. Ellie was shrieking, her face red and scared. Logan rushed to her first, scooping her into his arms. She buried her face in his hoodie, sobbing. Behind him, Ranger had retreated slightly, back near the pantry, head low but still alert, eyes locked on something. Logan turned. The spoon. It lay near the kitchen island, streaked with something pale and faintly pink. Not cinnamon, not banana. He didn't say a word. Outside, sirens wailed, growing louder. A neighbour must have called 911. Logan's world blurred. He cradled Ellie, checked Dana's bleeding, called for towels, but his focus was fractured. Part of him stayed locked on Ranger, who hadn't moved, hadn't barked, hadn't taken his eyes off that spoon. Something was wrong. Dana's voice trembled from the floor. "He just went for me. I didn't do anything. Your dog went crazy." Logan didn't answer. He looked down at Ranger. The dog wasn't pacing or panting. He was just watching. When the EMTs arrived, chaos flooded the room. Dana was bandaged, Ellie was comforted. 2 police officers stepped into the kitchen. One recognized Logan. Polite but firm. "We need to take the dog, Logan. Protocol." "He's not a stray," Logan replied, voice tight. "He's a decorated K9. "I know, but he bit a civilian." Logan nodded numbly. Ranger didn't resist when Logan clipped the leash on, didn't growl, didn't flinch. But just before the door, the dog turned one last time, looked back at the table, not Dana. The table. As they led him to the van, Logan's gut twisted. His mind screamed something wasn't right. Dana had always been kind. Ellie loved her. There had been no red flags. And yet, Ranger had never misread danger. Not once. Not in war zones. Not in alleys. Not in burning buildings. Before the door shut, Logan leaned in. "I'll figure it out. I promise." The van pulled away. Inside, Ellie clung to her stuffed turtle, cheeks streaked with tears. Logan sat next to her on the couch, every sound in the house amplified. His ears rang from tension, and then it came back to him. The spoon. He rose. Quietly walked to the kitchen, took a paper towel and picked it up. There it was again, that faint pink smear. He leaned closer to the bowl, smelled it. There, underneath banana and oats, a sharp, metallic scent. Barely there, but unnatural. His stomach churned. He scraped a small portion into a Ziploc. Not for the police, for someone he trusted more. By the time the sun crept higher into the sky, Logan sat in his truck, parked outside a private lab run by Dr. Marlene Jacobs, a veterinary toxicologist he'd once known overseas. She had helped soldiers quietly, outside of the paperwork and the red tape. She didn't ask questions when he handed her the bag, just raised an eyebrow and said, "That's not what oatmeal's supposed to smell like." She got to work. Logan didn't stay. He couldn't bear to be away from Ellie for long. He drove home with eyes scanning side streets, mirrors, corners, like he used to. Back home, Dana had texted, said she was traumatized. Asked if she'd be fired. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not yet. That evening, as Ellie napped, Logan sat in silence beside her crib. He hadn't told the police about the spoon, about the smell, about what he suspected. He needed more. Ranger didn't bite without cause, and the question wasn't whether the dog had snapped. It was what was in that oatmeal, and who had put it there. Outside, the sun dipped low behind the trees and the quiet returned, thick, watchful, charged. Logan didn't believe in coincidence, and he no longer trusted the woman who wore pink hoodies and called his daughter Princess. He checked the batteries on the Nanny cam, just in case. Whatever this was, it was far from over. 2 hours later, Logan sat behind the wheel of his truck, parked in a gravel lot outside a building that looked more like a converted barn than a professional lab. There was no sign, no flashy logos, just a single name on a mailbox, Dr. Marlene Jacobs. They had served together once. She'd been the one to test drinking water in villages after raids, calm under pressure, never asked unnecessary questions. If there was anyone he could trust with this, it was her. When she opened the door, she didn't say hello, just took one look at his face and the sealed bag in his hand. "From a toddler's breakfast?" she asked. Logan nodded. She opened the bag, peeled back a corner of the plastic and sniffed. "That's not what oatmeal's supposed to smell like," she muttered. She didn't press him for more, just disappeared into the lab with the sample. Her quiet confidence gave Logan a moment's pause, but he didn't stay. He needed to be with Ellie. As he drove home, his hands tightened around the steering wheel. His mind kept running the same loop. Ellie at the table. Dana stirring the bowl. Ranger frozen in the doorway. Back home, Ellie was asleep in her crib, her cheeks rosy from crying, the stuffed turtle tucked under her arm like armor. Logan sat on the edge of the bed, watching her chest rise and fall, counting each breath like it was the only thing keeping him tethered. Dana had texted again. "They said I need a tetanus shot. Am I still employed?" He didn't reply. He couldn't bring himself to lie, and he wasn't ready to tell her the truth. Instead, he walked through the house, turning lights off one by one, his thoughts circling like buzzards. What if? What if the smear on the spoon wasn't an accident? What if that smell wasn't a spoiled banana? And what if Ranger had saved Ellie's life? Morning came heavy and hollow. Logan hadn't really slept. He hovered near Ellie all night, every creak of the floorboards setting him on edge. In the kitchen, the bowl still sat on the counter, now sealed in a new bag. The oatmeal inside had dried into a thick, crusted layer. Logan held it up to the light, watching the pale shimmer of something unnatural cling to the inside of the plastic. He felt sick. When he checked his messages, there was nothing from Marlene yet. He didn't expect results overnight, but the weight twisted his stomach in knots. Later that morning, Logan drove to the county shelter. It was a squat concrete building with peeling paint and chain-link fences rattling in the wind. The receptionist looked at him like he was already the villain in this story. "Dog's on hold," she said, barely glancing at his ID. "I know, I just want to see him." After some grumbling and a phone call, they led him back. Ranger was in the last kennel on the left. He didn't bark, didn't whine. He simply stood when Logan entered, ears lifting, tail low but steady, and pressed his body against the bars like a question. "I know, buddy," Logan whispered. "I'm working on it." A young tech with sleeve tattoos hovered nearby. "He's actually been really calm," she said. "Didn't growl at intake, ate a little, but he hasn't touched his water." Logan frowned. "Can I leave something from home? A blanket? A toy?" "Technically, yes. Has to be checked in." She hesitated, then added quietly, "Off the record, most dogs don't act like this unless something's wrong. We've seen aggressive dogs. They're tense, jumpy, reactive. Your guy? He's different." Logan gave a tired nod. "Yeah, he always has been." He crouched near the gate, reaching a hand through the bars. Ranger leaned into the touch, but Logan noticed something else. Every so often, Ranger would glance, not at Logan, but toward a distant corner of the shelter. Where a gate separated the rest of the room from a row of new arrivals, a puppy whined behind that barrier. Ranger's ears twitched, his eyes tracking the sound. Still protective, still alert, even here. Not a violent dog, not unstable. Something had triggered him. Logan was going to find out what. By mid-afternoon, Logan's phone rang, an unfamiliar number. He answered before the second ring. "Logan here." Marlene's voice was low, clipped. "I ran a GCMS scan. There are trace amounts of ethylene glycol in the oatmeal." Logan's chest constricted. "That's antifreeze?" "Yes. Very small amount, but consistent with early-stage poisoning. Not enough to cause an immediate reaction, but repeated doses in a child." She didn't finish. Logan felt the world go still. Ellie, his baby girl. "How recent?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Within the hour of collection, the sample was still warm. He exhaled, fighting the panic rising in his throat. "Can you document it?" "I can, but be careful. If this turns legal, CPS, criminal court, you'll need more than a toxicology report. You'll need proof of intent, motive." Logan closed his eyes. "Thank you." When he hung up, the house around him felt foreign, like a movie set. Familiar but false. He looked around. The stuffed toys, the fridge magnets, the stack of bibs. None of it could protect her. Only Ranger had seen it. That night, Logan didn't sleep. He reviewed everything in his head, frame by frame. Dana had come early, made the oatmeal herself. Ellie sat in her booster, laughing. Logan was at the sink, rinsing bottles. It had felt like any other morning, except for the part where Ranger lost control. Or didn't. Logan rose from the couch, walked down the hall, and opened the drawer beneath the TV. Inside was the Nanny Cam hard drive. He'd installed it to monitor deliveries. Never expected to use it for something like this. He plugged it in, opened the folder. Hours of footage. Too much to process. He began to fast forward, Nanny singing, reading books, folding laundry. Then he saw it. 7:38 a.m. Dana, purse in hand, reaching inside. She pulled out a small vine-marked glass, clear liquid inside. She held it low, near her hip, uncapped it, and stirred something into the oatmeal. No label, no hesitation. Logan's heart stopped. He paused the frame, zoomed in, clicked a screenshot. It wasn't just a hunch anymore, it was evidence. He stared at the screen for a long time, the glow lighting the corners of his face. He didn't understand the why, but he understood the what. Someone had tried to poison his daughter, and if not for a dog that refused to blink, she might already be gone. The next morning, Logan stood outside the police station with the Nanny Cam footage loaded onto a flash drive and a storm brewing behind his eyes. He hadn't slept more than an hour, running the same few seconds over and over in his mind. The vial, the hand, the stir, the smile, the deliberate ease of it, like she'd done it before. Inside the precinct, the air smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. A receptionist buzzed him through, and a minute later, he sat across from Detective Erica Dunn. Mid-40s, sharp lines around her mouth, silver hoops in her ears. She and Logan had shared shifts back when he was still in uniform. There was no small talk. "You sure it was ethylene glycol?" she asked, sliding a legal pad toward her. "I have the report," Logan said, pulling out the printout from Dr. Jacobs. "And I have this." He handed her the flash drive. Erica plugged it into her laptop. The video loaded. There it was again, Dana at 7:38 a.m., reaching into her purse, pulling out the vial, stirring it into Ellie's oatmeal like she was adding sugar. Her expression never changed. Calm, casual, almost bored. "I don't know the motive," Logan said, "but Ranger reacted. That's what saved Ellie." Erica leaned back, arms crossed. "You realize how heavy this accusation is, right? Attempted poisoning of a child isn't a domestic issue. It's federal." "I'm not accusing," Logan replied evenly. "I'm reporting suspicious behavior. My daughter's safety comes first." She nodded slowly. "Let me take this to the DA. Meanwhile, keep your daughter close. Don't tip your hand." Logan stood. "Ranger stays in quarantine for now?" "Until the bite case is officially reclassified," she said. "But if your evidence checks out, we'll have grounds to lift it." Outside, the wind had picked up. Logan paused beside his truck, watching his reflection tremble in the window glass. A few days ago, his biggest concern was spilled juice and diaper rash. Now he was chasing down a woman who tried to murder his child with breakfast. He wasn't just a dad anymore. He was a soldier again, and he was back on mission. At the Pine County Pediatric Clinic, the waiting room smelled like crayons and disinfectant. Ellie sat on the exam table in a yellow t-shirt with ducks across the chest, clutching a grape lollipop. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't smiling either. Dr. Avery Feldman, in his late 50s, walked in wearing a bow tie and carrying a clipboard. He glanced up at Logan. "I ran the full panel," he said gently. "Her kidneys are functioning normally, but her creatinine levels are slightly elevated." Logan's chest seized. "What does that mean?" "It means there's early stress, not failure, but it supports what you told me about the antifreeze exposure." Logan exhaled slowly. "So she ingested it?" "Yes. Likely a small amount, possibly more than once." Ellie sucked on her lollipop, legs swinging, oblivious to the fact that her life was being measured in enzymes and chemical traces. Dr. Feldman looked up. "Do you want to file a hospital report?" "Yes," Logan said. "Everything documented, in case it goes to court." "Good. Push fluids, bring her back in 48 hours. If she spikes a fever, call me. Any hour." Logan nodded. "Thanks for taking this seriously." Feldman didn't smile. "A child this young doesn't get accidental antifreeze in her system. This is serious by default." That afternoon, Logan parked outside a small veterinary behavioral center on the edge of town. The sign read, "Kindred Spirit Animal Wellness." Inside, Ranger sat on a padded mat, calm but watchful. A tabby cat curled beside him, unbothered. A woman in her 40s crouched beside Ranger, tossing dried liver treats in a semicircle. "Approach. Pause. Release," she said softly. Ranger didn't move. When she spotted Logan, she stood and approached. "You must be Logan Reed." "I am." "Melinda Carr," she said, shaking his hand. "Behaviorist. I used to work with handlers at Fort Benning. Now I specialize in trauma cases. Misunderstood heroes." Logan felt his throat tighten. "That's him." They sat in a consultation room as she flipped through a report. Ranger is responsive to commands, non-reactive to unfamiliar people, no compulsive behavior. No signs of prey drive beyond standard canine training. In my opinion, this was not aggression. Logan leaned forward. "Then what was it?" "Protective instinct," she said. "Your daughter was the most vulnerable individual in the room. Based on the timeline and the location of the bite, it was a targeted intervention, controlled. No mauling, no repeated attack, just a warning with teeth." Logan rubbed his face with both hands. "I needed to hear that. They've got him labeled as unpredictable." "They're wrong," Melinda said, "and I'll testify under oath." Through the viewing window, Logan watched Ranger curl around the stuffed bear Ellie had once dropped into the crate, his eyes half closed, finally resting. Back at home, Logan found a plain envelope in the mailbox. No return address, no handwriting, just one sheet of typed paper. He's not wrong. Look in her purse. She was never supposed to stay this long. His heart raced. Dana's purse was still under the umbrella stand. She'd left in a hurry. Logan pulled it out and began searching. Receipts, gum, half a granola bar. Then he found it. A prescription bottle, not prescribed to Dana Blake. Name, Malene Carter. Fluoxetine for anxiety, issued by Northside Women's Correctional Facility. Logan froze. He read it twice, then reached into the bottom of the bag and found a folded newspaper clipping. Yellowed. Fragile. The headline read, "Child neglect case ends in sentencing." The mugshot stared up at him, sunken eyes, matted hair. But the face, it was her. Dana was not Dana. She was a convicted abuser. Logan ran to his laptop and pulled up county records. Malene Carter, age 35, served 18 months, released under supervised parole, current location unknown. She had lied her way into his house, fed his child, held her hand. Logan called Detective Dunn immediately. "We have a bigger problem," he said. "The woman in my house wasn't Dana Blake." "You're sure?" "I have her prescription bottle, a news clipping, sending you pictures now." Dunn was silent for a moment. "This changes everything," she said. "False identity while working with a minor? That's a felony. And if she has a record of endangerment, plus your evidence of poisoning, the DA will come down hard." "Where is she now?" Logan asked. "She told you she was with a cousin, right?" "That could be a lie. We'll issue a bolo immediately." "Don't go looking for her yourself, Logan." He didn't answer. He just stared down the hallway toward his daughter's room and thought of Ranger, the one accused of being dangerous, the one who had seen through her from the very start. The following morning, Logan returned to the behavioral center where Ranger had spent the past several days. Melinda met him at the door, clipboard in hand, a firm expression on her face. "We submitted the behavioral report to the county," she said. "With the toxicology results and your video footage, they're moving to clear Ranger." Logan knelt beside his dog. Ranger's eyes lit up, and he leaned forward, resting his head gently in Logan's palm. "We're almost there, buddy," Logan whispered. "You were right all along." Ranger licked his knuckles, nudged his arm, and exhaled as if the weight he'd been carrying had finally started to lift. For the first time in days, so did Logan. But the danger wasn't over. That afternoon, Logan found himself pacing the carpet in front of Ellie's crib. It was just after 2 a.m., and the house was silent except for the low hum of the baby monitor. Ellie was curled under her blanket, one thumb near her mouth, her breathing even. Ranger lay just outside her door, head on his paws, eyes wide open. Logan couldn't sleep. He gripped Ranger's old K9 vest in his hands, the one with the American flag patch and the words "Retired, do not pet" stitched across the back. It still smelled like cedarwood and loyalty. Ranger hadn't failed. He had. At 9 a.m., Logan's phone rang. Detective Dunn's voice came through, flat and grim. She didn't show up at her cousin's. Fake name on her urgent care intake. Her phone's off. No credit card activity. She's vanished. Logan's stomach dropped. So she could be anywhere. "We've issued a bolo across 3 states, flagged her aliases at all hospitals. Someone will see her eventually." "What about the DA?" he asked. "He's reviewing your footage, the toxicology and her criminal record. They're building a case. Attempted poisoning of a minor, identity fraud, parole violation. It's all there." "She legally changed her name after release, didn't she?" "Yes, in Arkansas, then moved west. That's how she slipped through background checks." Logan stared out the kitchen window, one hand gripping the counter. "She could have done this to anyone." "She picked you," Erica said quietly. "We'll find her." That afternoon, Logan walked into the county animal shelter and signed the release forms. Ranger was coming home. The kennel door opened with a soft click. Ranger didn't lunge or bark. He walked forward with calm, purposeful steps and placed his head gently in Logan's hand. Several workers stood nearby, watching. One clapped, another smiled. Even the receptionist, who once called Ranger Scary Big, handed Logan a dog treat. "Glad he's going home," she said. "He's not like the others. He knew something." Logan drove home with one eye on the mirror. Ranger rested quietly in the back seat, but his ears twitched with every passing sound. Alert, steady, unshaken. At home, Logan had a plan. He called Marcus Hughes, an old friend and a former cybercrimes investigator who now ran a private digital forensics firm. "I need to trace a digital footprint," Logan said. "Her real name is Malene Carter. She's using burner phones, maybe fake Wi-Fi. Can you find anything?" "Send me what you've got," Marcus replied. "Every name, every alias, old addresses, photos. I'll run it." Logan compiled everything. Motel bills, the nanny cam footage, screenshots, old prescriptions, and dropped it into a secure folder. Marcus responded just before dinner. "Got something." A GPS map arrived by email, pinned with 3 recent data points. She logged into a prepaid Wi-Fi plan tied to the alias M. Blake. The pings are all near the state line, about 40 miles east. A small motel, a gas station, and a diner. Logan's blood ran cold. She's still close. That night, Logan sat in the living room. Ranger curled beside him, Ellie asleep upstairs. The house was quiet, too quiet. He opened a manila folder labeled Carter Case. Inside, the screenshot of Dana with the vial, Dr. Jacobs' toxicology report, the pill bottle, the newspaper clipping, all the evidence, all the horror. But it wasn't enough. He didn't want her gone. He wanted answers. Why Ellie? Why now? How many other families? He opened his laptop and pulled up the original arrest record from Malene's 2017 conviction in Illinois. There were pages of documentation, neglect, malnutrition, removal of the child by CPS. A judge's note caught his eye. Subject expressed no remorse at removal of her child, repeatedly claimed the child was the problem, displayed signs of narcissistic delusion and maternal detachment. Logan sat back, chills creeping up his arms. That cold smile. The way she spoke to Ellie, the way she moved in their house like she belonged there more than he did. The worst monsters didn't hide in shadows. They sang lullabies, folded laundry, stirred poison into breakfast with a soft voice. Later that evening, Ellie spiked a low-grade fever. Nothing dramatic, just a rise in temperature, flushed cheeks, a quiet whimper. But Logan's heart thundered as he cradled her in his arms, her head tucked beneath his chin. He called Dr. Feldman immediately. "Could this be from the antifreeze?" he asked. "Possibly," Feldman replied. "Her labs showed early renal stress, push fluids. Keep her cool, Bring her in tomorrow morning if she worsens." Logan rocked Ellie slowly, whispering lullabies he barely remembered from her infant days. He couldn't lose her. Not to this. Not to someone he let into their lives. Across the hallway, Ranger stood motionless at the door. He hadn't taken his eyes off Ellie since he'd returned. He hadn't eaten, hadn't rested, not until she smiled at him. He slept outside her door, shadowed her every step. That dog knew more than any human ever could, and Logan would trust him with everything he had left. Around midnight, a low growl vibrated through the hallway, deep, controlled, focused. Logan jolted awake. Ranger was standing, tail stiff, head turned toward the back of the house. Logan reached for the drawer beside the couch, pulled out his pistol, and moved silently. Ranger paced beside him, low and alert. Logan peered through the kitchen window. A shadow, moving along the fence line. A woman, blonde, hooded, heading toward the shed. His pulse slammed through his ears. He tapped a quick text to Erica Dunn. "She's here. At my house. Alone." Then, gun raised, he slipped through the side door. Ranger pressed to his knee. They rounded the corner silently. Malign stood at the shed door, flashlight in one hand, something clutched to her chest. A bottle. A cloth. Logan didn't wait. "Freeze!" he shouted. "Hands where I can see them." She spun, eyes wide, voice shaking. "It's not what you think." Ranger launched not to bite but to block, standing between her and Logan, baring teeth just enough to freeze her in place. "I wasn't trying to hurt her," Malign said, trembling. "I came back to explain." "Shut up," Logan snapped. "You poisoned my kid. You lied your way into my home." "I didn't mean to," Ranger barked sharply, the kind of bark that silences. Moments later, the sound of tires crunching gravel broke the standoff. Two cruisers rolled up the drive, red and blue lights spilling across the yard. Detective Dunn stepped out, hand resting on her holster. "Step away from the shed, Malign. Now." Malign dropped the bottle, raised her hands. Within seconds, she was cuffed and read her rights. Logan stood beneath the swirling lights, breath ragged, every nerve burning. Ranger sat beside him, calm now, watchful, and for the first time in days, Logan found the words that had been stuck in his throat. "You saved a life, boy," he whispered. "You really did." By the time the sun rose over Sycamore Street, the air in Logan's house felt different, cleaner, calmer, breathable. Malign Carter was in custody. Ellie was still safe in her crib, her fever gone, her breathing steady. And Ranger, the one labelled unpredictable and dangerous, now lay stretched out on the living room rug, snoring like he had carried the weight of the world and finally set it down. Logan sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, the ache in his chest finally dulling. His phone buzzed every few minutes, texts from Erica confirming Malign's booking, calls from reporters, even voicemails from strangers who had heard the story already hitting local news. He ignored them all. Instead, he opened the folder again. The nanny cam footage, the toxicology report, the screenshots, the prescription bottle, the newspaper clipping. He had watched that single damning video a dozen times. But now he wanted more than the smoking gun. He wanted to understand the pattern, the moments he had missed. He opened the full nanny cam file. It started 2 weeks earlier. He watched Malign, walk in every morning like clockwork. Pink hoodie, purse slung over her shoulder, coffee in hand, singing lullabies, folding blankets, bouncing Ellie on her hip. To anyone else, she looked perfect. But Logan watched closely now, studied every frame. In one clip, she stared out the kitchen window for 10 minutes, unmoving, while Ellie played with blocks behind her. In another, she whispered, not sang, while washing dishes, her lips moving too fast, her eyes glassy. Then, 4 days before the attack, she reached into her purse, pulled out a small white envelope, and tapped its contents into a measuring spoon, stirred it into Ellie's juice. Logan paused the footage. He had been in the kitchen at the time, feet away, answering emails. Oblivious. She was good at hiding. But Ranger had seen it all. Later that morning, Logan met Detective Dunn at the station. She slid a folder across the table. "Her real name is now flagged across every major database," Erica said. "We pulled her psychological history, post-conviction therapy reports from Illinois, 3 court-mandated sessions. She stopped showing up." Logan opened the file. Words like attachment disorder, paranoia, and resentment toward maternal roles jumped out at him. "She hated mothers," Logan muttered, "or the idea of what she thought a mother should be," Erica said. "These types don't need logic. They need proximity to a victim." How did she end up here? She answered a domestic staffing ad. Kansas agency. Background check came back clean under the name Dana Blake. She changed her ID legally after release. New social, new license, forged references. Logan clenched his jaw. So she was planning this. Erica didn't reply. Instead, she pulled out a second folder. This was found in her motel room. Inside was a worn black and white composition notebook. On the cover, M. Blake Daily Notes. Logan flipped it open. His breath caught. Pages of erratic diary-style writing filled the notebook. Ellie trusts me now. She doesn't cry when I put her down for naps anymore. Logan always leaves at 8:15. The dog watches. He doesn't blink. He knows I'm not the bad one. They never saw what I did for her. This time I'll do it right. This one's better. This one's clean. The words got shakier, more frantic toward the end. Entire lines scratched out. Drawings, cribs, children's hands, a dog's face with the eyes gouged out. Logan shut the notebook, bile rising in his throat. Later, back home, he knelt beside Ranger and pressed his forehead to the dog's. "You saw through her," he whispered. Ranger wagged his tail, slow and steady, then nudged Logan's arm like none of it had ever been in doubt. That afternoon, Erica called with a final update. The DA filed formal charges, 4 counts, attempted poisoning of a minor, identity fraud, endangering the welfare of a child, and violation of parole. Bond denied. Logan closed his eyes. She's not going anywhere. We've also launched a multi-state review of every domestic agency she worked with. If there are other families... She didn't finish. Logan's voice hardened. She won't get another chance. Erica hesitated. You should know. There was more. In the motel fridge, a second container of oatmeal. Same brand, same cinnamon, same trace of antifreeze. Logan went still. It had Ellie's name written on the lid. She was planning to do it again. Silence stretched across the line. She didn't stop because she felt guilty, Erica said. She stopped because Ranger got in the way. That night, the local paper ran the story. Retired K9 hero exposes poisoning plot against toddler. The front page featured a photo of Ranger, alert and calm, sitting outside the shelter just before his release. By sundown, the story spread across regional news stations. Logan's phone exploded with messages. A bakery sent a basket of dog treats. A local vet offered free health coverage for Ranger, for life. A school invited Logan and Ranger to speak at a safety assembly. Some just wanted to say thank you. Others had stories, things they saw and ignored, times they wished they had a Ranger of their own. That weekend, Logan took Ellie and Ranger to the river park. It was a breezy Saturday. Kids played, parents laughed, the smell of grilled hot dogs floated in the air. Ellie ran through the grass, her stuffed turtle in one hand, Ranger trotting faithfully beside her. Logan sat on a bench and watched the girl he'd nearly lost. Watched the dog who'd never stopped protecting her. A woman approached him, early 30s. Her son clung to her jeans. "Are you Logan Reed?" "I am. I saw your story. What you and that dog did, what he did, that's real courage." Logan smiled faintly, eyes resting on Ranger. "He's the hero. I just got lucky." The woman knelt to pet the dog. "He saved her life." "Yeah," Logan said, voice thick. "And probably mine too." As they walked back to the truck, Ellie whispered to Ranger, "Good boy. I love you." Ranger licked her hand, and Logan knew deep in his bones that no matter what darkness they had walked through, they had come out stronger. Together. 2 weeks later, the house on Sycamore Street felt transformed. Gone were the shadows that used to linger in the hallway. The air no longer carried tension. It smelled of cinnamon muffins, baby lotion, and the soft sighs of a home reclaiming its peace. Ellie was sleeping better, laughing more. Logan found himself actually drinking his coffee while it was hot instead of leaving it to go cold on some windowsill or nightstand. And then there was Ranger. He had resumed his silent post by Ellie's bedroom door each night, rising only when she woke. No barking, no growling, just presence. Unwavering. Constant. That morning, Logan received a call from the district attorney's office. The voice on the other end was calm, almost solemn. Malene Carter entered a guilty plea. No trial. All counts. Logan was stunned. Why? She read the behavioral evaluation, the toxicology report, your statement, and the nanny cam footage, and we think she saw the part where a dog, your dog, recognized her for what she was when no one else did. She realized she couldn't outrun it this time. What's the sentence? 25 years. No parole for at least 15. Logan didn't speak for a moment. He wasn't a vengeful man, but justice mattered. This time the system got it right. He looked down. Ranger lay in a sunbeam by the back door, his eyes half closed but still aware of every sound. Logan reached down, stroked his fur. "She won't ever hurt another kid," he said softly. "That's thanks to your partner," the DA replied. "You should be proud." "I am." Later that week, the town square buzzed with quiet anticipation. The mayor had called it an informal community thank you, but to Logan it felt like a hero's welcome. Kids wore stickers that read "Canines Save Lives." Local shops handed out lemonade and mini dog toys. A cafe even launched a limited edition drink called the Ranger Blend, dark roast with cinnamon and vanilla. Logan stood off to the side, Ranger sitting calmly beside him, wearing a new vest embroidered with a golden patch. Hero, retired K9. When the mayor stepped up to the mic, the crowd quo valor, instinct and unwavering protection of an innocent child, she said, "We recognize Ranger as an honorary protector of Pine County." Applause erupted. Ranger barked once, his tail swishing with just the right hint of pride. Ellie walked up, clutching a small bouquet of sunflowers. She handed them to the mayor, then turned and threw her arms around Ranger. He licked her ear, and she squealed with delight. The cameras clicked. Reporters smiled, but it was the quiet moments that lingered. After the ceremony, strangers approached one by one. Some just wanted to pet Ranger, others had stories, things they'd seen in their own lives. Signs of abuse they hadn't known how to read, children they'd failed to protect. One elderly veteran, sleeves rolled up to reveal faded scars, knelt beside the dog and said softly, "I worked with dogs in Nam. They saved more lives than we ever gave them credit for. Don't ever let anyone tell you he's just a pet." Logan nodded, his voice caught. "I won't." That night, after Ellie was tucked into bed, Logan sat on the porch with a cold beer and Ranger curled at his feet. The stars glowed faint above and the wind rustled the trees gently. He pulled out the notebook Erica had returned to him, Malene's journal. The one filled with fragmented thoughts, twisted praise and venom masked as care. He flipped to the page that chilled him most. "The dog watches. He doesn't blink, he knows." Logan looked down. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Ranger lifted his head, blinked once and gently rested his chin on Logan's boot. Logan smiled. Not a guard dog, not a weapon. A guardian. The next day he placed the journal in the fire pit, watched it curl and blacken until it was nothing but ash. Some stories didn't deserve to be remembered. The following week, Logan installed a second nanny cam, not because he expected danger again, but because he'd learned not to trust blindly. He also accepted a part-time position teaching K9 response at the local academy. Quiet, fulfilling, a way to pass on what mattered. Ranger came too. The recruits were mesmerized. They didn't need every detail of what had happened. When asked, Logan just said, "He saved my family." That was enough. In early spring, Logan and Ellie took a weekend trip to the mountains to visit his sister. They hiked, fished, made pancakes over a fire. At night, Ellie watched fireflies through the window, while Ranger guarded the cabin door like it was his new assignment. On the drive home, Ellie fell asleep in her car seat, clutching Ranger's old K9 collar like it was her favorite stuffed animal. Logan glanced at her in the mirror and felt that quiet tightening in his chest, not from fear but from something warmer. Gratitude. They had survived, and not alone. Back home, life settled into new rhythms. Ellie now insisted on feeding Ranger breakfast, one scoop at a time, singing her jumbled version of the alphabet as she did. She always got stuck somewhere around Q, then looped back to A. Ranger didn't mind. Logan added a new plaque above the fireplace. Ranger, loyal, protector, partner, friend. And sometimes when the sun broke through just right in the mornings, Logan would find Ranger lying quietly outside Ellie's room. Like a sentinel, muscle, memory and love, all wrapped in fur and silence. Nothing would get past him. Not this time. Not ever again. To everyone who followed this journey, thank you. Sometimes the loudest alarms don't come from sirens. They come from silence, from a dog refusing to blink, from a growl that saves a life.